in our first three lessons, we outlined three different views about what it means to be made in the image of God. And by themselves, if you took them as the comprehensive view of what it means, then they're incompatible with each other, right? So typically, when you read through the literature on the image of God, you'll find people, authors will go through the different options, and then they'll present the option that they think is the best, or they'll pick the option of the ones that they've selected, with the implication being that the other options aren't correct, that they're missing something. That's not how we think about the three views that we have gone through in these lessons. We think that they each fit together into a comprehensive, single vision about what it means to be made in the image of God. And what's cool is that the categories that Matt outlined for us in the first lesson are what help us to see how they fit together. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, or in this lesson, not in this lesson, in this discussion. So Matt, why don't you start us off by reminding us about those categories that you mentioned in the talk?
Right, yeah. So in the first lesson, we thought about how the image of God can be seen in what sets us apart from the rest of creation. And that's something that's key to our substance, key to our nature. And to explain that, we brought in some terms from the philosophy of Aristotle and Aquinas. We thought about form and we thought about matter. The matter is what is made into that thing, and the form is what makes a thing the sort of thing that it is. So the form is what organizes a thing, and it's what puts it into a category. And the matter is the thing that's kind of made into that thing. It's what gives it its powers, and yeah, that's more or less the framework that we outlined in the first lesson. We go into a little bit more detail there. So if you want to go back to that first lesson, that would be the place you'd find it.
So those two, form and matter, are part of a bigger scheme that Aristotle outlines in various places, but I guess you could see it in the physics if you want, in his book, The Physics, if you wanted. So there are two of the four causes of Aristotle. So the matter is the material cause and the form is the formal cause. There's also the efficient cause, which is the thing that makes the thing, brings the thing into existence. And then there's the final cause, which is I guess you could say the purpose for the thing existing, or the sort of the thing that it's doing things for, I guess you could say.
It's end goal.
It's end goal.
It's reason for being. We sort of alluded to this. We didn't talk specifically about final causes in that lesson, but it is hinted at when we said that form is inherently functionally defined. A form is what a form is for. We spoke about houses, that houses aren't one particular shape. You can have various shapes of houses. What makes a house into a house, what puts it into the category house, or gives it the form house, is that it's something that's suitable for living in. That living in is living in it would be its final cause, what it's there for.
Yeah, and so that's what governs its particular structure. The reason that we have walls and a ceiling and so on is so that someone can live in the house, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not the same thing, but they are so closely connected to one another that,
Yeah, that's what gives meaning to it, yeah.
So given that, we can ask, given that, I guess you could say our view is that you could assign the different views that we've been looking at to different parts of the scheme, of this four-cause scheme. Now, obviously, God is the efficient cause. So that's the thing we've seen in every one of the lessons. God is the one who makes us in his image. So that's a pretty easy one to explain. Mac, where does the substantive view go?
That would, I guess, be that would be the material cause. That's what gives it its... If we're talking about what humans are, then I guess that would then still be organized into a further or the bigger idea of what it means to be made in God's image when we kind of put these together. I don't know, maybe, do you have a better way of explaining that?
The way I like to think of... No, I think I think that's right. But I think the way I tend to word like material causes is like, it's a thing that's capable of being lots of different things, right? And then the form is what makes it one of those things, right?
Yeah.
So you can think of like the matter of like physical things. That can be a tree, it can be a rock, it can be a human, it can be a dog or a squirrel or something. So the matter itself is indeterminate between these different options. And then depending on how it's fixed or categorized or organized, as you say, then it gets made one of these things that it's indeterminate between. And so then if you think of it just our human nature, like our capacities or our powers as humans, that could go in any number of different ways, right? Like we could have not been given a responsibility or a relationship with God. We could have been left to our own devices. We could have been given a relationship with God, but not given a responsibility. There could be like all different ways that they could have worked out. We would have had the same nature, but that nature is being used in different ways.
Yeah. So taking that a step further, then where would the relational view fit in?
Yeah. So the relational view then is how we start to organize, is how we organize that. So if we say, okay, we've got this collection of humans, and they have these different powers, or they don't have different, they have the same set of powers that they have, then the relational view is how God has chosen to organize them. So he said, okay, well, I'm going to create these creatures with these powers, and then I'm going to organize them in such a way that they have a relationship with each other, and that relationship with each other serves a relationship with me. And so that's the horizontal and the vertical components that we mentioned in the relational view. So the relationships that we talk there are the organization of the human species. It's sort of like how a sports team works, right? Like everyone in the sports team has their own capacities and abilities, but then their relationship when they come together to be that sports team or work together, that's what makes them the sports team. And likewise for the image of God.
Yeah. So then that leaves us with the last one. We've got the vocational view.
And that makes sense, right? That's fitting as a final cause or the reason or purpose. It's like we have these capacities that enable us to be organized for relationship for the sake of ruling with God over his creation, like expressing this royal status that God has given us in harmony with him as the God over us, as the ruler over us.
Fulfilling the task that he's given us, essentially. When he tells us, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the rest of creation. It's a job that we're given to do. And that job depends on the material and formal causes. It depends on us being the sorts of creatures that we are, that we're rational animals and, with faculties that are suited to the task at hand, and also that we do it together. We need each other in the way that we go about fulfilling this task that God has given us. We can't go it alone. It's not something that each individual is given, and that's the whole story. It's something that we're all doing together as well.